Hello, denizens of YouTube. This is Danger Hawkins, aka, well, Nick Dorn, aka Danger Hawkins, from Magic the Gathering Lab. And I'm going to talk to you about the basics of the game today. So we're going to talk really quick about the opening stages of the game, mulligans, and we'll get into some of the cards, but probably not in the detail that you wish that I got into the cards, which is fine. So here we have an example. Here is a deck. Decks are about 60 cards, maybe more, depends on what format you're playing. I'll get into the formats later on. This is just a brief overview of the base game. So this is my Spirits deck. The spirits are always with you. That's actually its name. Literally, word for word, that is its name. For those of you who love my Bleach reference, thank you. For those of you who don't, it's a reference to a TV show. Now, at the beginning of the game, you're going to draw 7 cards, so that's 2. That's 4. That's 6, and this is going to be a terrible hand because I didn't shuffle this deck after I made it. So, as you can see, I drew 7 cards, and there's no land in here. Nothing. Which is not good. You need land. You need land to do everything in this game. So, here's what we're going to do. We're going to change that. We're going to make this, we're going to do what's called a mulligan. This is a perfect example of a time you would need to use a mulligan. Now, mulligans are very important. Mulligans are like the lifeblood of what you're going to be doing. So, really quick here, yeah, because I'm staring off into the random distance at my beautiful Chicago coffee mug. Great city. I've only been there once, and I can tell you that their train station is very nice. Now, when you mulligan, this is what you got to do. You got to take your deck. I'm going to show it briefly. Now, you're going to take your deck, and you're going to shuffle that sucker. So I'm going to shuffle a little bit off screen here. You can't see it, but I am shuffling like a boss, like I am a casino dealer. Not really. They use shuffle machines there. You can't use a shuffle machine, by the way. In Magic the Gathering, that is not allowed. That's actually a rule. You cannot you have to use your own 2 hands. They don't want you stacking. Ooh. So my terrible riffle shuffle because I had to reach over my giant iPad to do that. So that's just going to be a basic shuffle. I'm not really going to get too worried about my cards. Now, the trick with mulligans, and why you don't want to do too many, is because you will lose significant card advantage every time you mulligan. Why? Because when you draw 1 less card for every time you mulligan. So, instead of drawing 7 cards, we're now drawing 6, and we have a hand that is just as terrible. But now that we've done that, I'm going to show you real quick a couple different ways. Well, one of the main way that I personally choose who goes first. Now, when I'm in a game with someone, usually what we do is we cut cards. So like this guy would be an S, and we take whatever one's farther up in the alphabet. And we'll take from this guy, and we have an A. So this deck would choose who goes first. Now the reason you might not want to go first is because you don't get to draw your first turn. And some people prefer that opening hand draw to get a little bit extra card advantage at the beginning. However, some people prefer a time advantage. Now this is a game in progress. This is like a cooking show. Here's the dish after it's come out of the oven. As you can see, the board is well glazed with creatures and a nice land sauce. Now, as you can see, these are your lands. So these are like your gasoline. You can get more gasoline, but you can only play 1 gasoline card per turn. Let's put it that way. Now, each card has different colors. This is a weird card that allows you to give either red or white mana, which is important because you need it for cards like this, who require both. Now, the trick is, this card doesn't give both at the same time. There are cards that do, but this one doesn't. However, this guy, he costs 2 colorless mana. That's that little gray number that's like right next to my finger. That gray 2. It means it requires 2 colorless. Then, which these are, now he needs 1 white, which is this bad boy right here, and you can see the little symbol right here matches the little symbol up there. So yeah, requires 1 white, and this is the one red we need. And you can see it by the little flame. Pretty obvious that that's the red. So we've got 3 creatures on this side of the field. Now, things are not looking good for this bad boy over here. He is getting toasted pretty badly right now. Both of these decks are aggro. This deck I just made, this deck just won a tournament with, it was a Guild Wars tournament, and it was with decks that I made. I played decks against each other, so it wasn't an actual tournament. It was just he's the best out of the 10 decks I built. Because what I do when I find decks, I only have 6 deck boxes, so I make 10 decks, have them duke it out, and they get one of the slots in the deck boxes. It's pretty simple. That's how I do things anyway. Some people do it differently. That's how I do it. Now this guy, he had to mulligan a couple times, and you can see because his hand is not very full. He has a 4-card hand. We're playing open hand right now. This guy's gotten to play more though, so he actually has less in his hand. However, this guy doesn't have any red mana, and he needs red mana because he dearly needs it, because he needs to play these cards right here. Now this guy, as you can see, he requires 2 red mana to play. So he's a 3-drop, which is very flexible. And I like 3 drops a whole lot. They usually make up a large portion of 90% of my decks, except these ones because they're aggro. And that's basically how the board looks right now. Now this guy right here, he's very interesting. He has an ability called Heroic. He has a +1/+1 counter, which is shown by this 10-sided dice. That's because I played an enchantment on him, and Heroic works like this. You target any spell that targets a creature, its ability gets activated. Its heroic ability gets activated. And his heroic ability is he gets a +1/+1 token, so he's not actually a 1/1 like it says down here. He's a 2/2. And that's just your toughness and stuff like that. So this right here, this left number is the power. The right number is the toughness. So this guy's a 2/2 as well. Now, he also has an ability called Indestructible, which means that he can't get killed by creatures, he can't get killed by damage, and he can't get killed by kill cards. He can only be killed by minus tokens. So, yeah. Which is not too difficult because he's a 2/2. To be completely honest, I could probably wipe him out pretty easy with a couple different cards in one of my other decks. But since both of these decks, neither of these decks use those cards, it's going to be tough to get him out of the way. Now, all 3 of these cards have something called Battalion. I'll get into that next turn when they all can attack. So this guy is basically in trouble here. Now, it's his turn, so he gets to draw. He gets to draw, and he's going to draw another one of these, which would normally be great, because this guy would be very big by now, and he'd be very tough to stop, with the wee exception of the fact that he doesn't have any red mana, and thus he can't do jack this turn, except attack, which he's going to, because there's really no point in not attacking at this juncture. So he's going to attack, and he's going to do 2 damage. Now you can see right here, this is the easier one to see. These are spin down dice. You can get these on Amazon for, like, some of them are $8, which is crazy. But you can get them fairly cheap. You can probably, actually if you buy a fat pack is what they're called, or if you buy like certain pre-made decks, then they come with spin down dice. And so that's what you get right there. It is a spin down. You start out with 20 life, and this spin down dice keeps track of that for you. Now sometimes though, and this is what I'm going to get into, so this guy's got his turn now. Sometimes you have to add life instead of lose it, which I'm about to get into, because their battalion ability is about to go into effect. Now, you can only play 1 land a turn. So now I have a choice here. I actually have a couple different things I can do. I can either play this super awesome 1-drop, right here, but I'm not going to, because I want to play this super awesome 5-drop that is a 3/5 and it has battalion, and it's going to be awesome. So I'm going to tap all 5. Now this is tapping. Some people do it differently, and some people are very, very anal about how they tap their cards and how you tap your cards. They'll get frustrated, which is actually kind of fun to mess with them that way. So he's got no board presence right now because he's tapped. He can't block. When your creatures attack, they can't block unless they have an ability called Vigilance, which he does not. So this guy's going to attack, this guy's going to attack, and this guy's going to attack, and this is where Battalion comes into effect. These guys both get lifelink, which means that any damage that they do this turn gets transmitted to this guy's life total. So he's going to go from 16 to 20. He's back up to full health. This guy gets +5/+5. So now he's a 7/7, 9/9, 11/11. Maybe attacking that last turn was a wee bit of a bad idea. This guy's kind of pretty close to dead because he's getting 11 damage. He only has 14 health right now, so he's probably going to lose next turn. So, yeah, he's kind of hitting rock bottom here. If I can find it. Okay, there's 9. Oh man, it's so hard to look through this screen to figure this out. Okay, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. As you can see, it spins. So I just had to get oriented on the dice. So now he's got 3. So now he's kind of pretty close to dead. So unless he draws a red card here and does something pretty astounding, he's kind of screwed. It's gonna take a miracle, or a board wipe card, in other words, that he doesn't have. I know because I built this deck. And he doesn't have the mana to play any of the board wipe cards. And he draws, of course, he draws an enchantment he can't use. So he's gonna sit back. There's not really much he can do anyway, because this guy's just gonna alpha strike with all 4 of these, and he doesn't even need to play any more creatures. He's going to win this pretty much hands down. But he's gonna bring out his own flyer just because he can, and it's got haste. So it can attack as soon as it comes out. Now that's something I forgot to mention. When you play a creature, it can't attack the turn it comes out unless it has this ability, haste. Also, flying creatures can only be blocked by other flying creatures or creatures with an ability called reach. So they're going to attack. Alpha Strike! It's actually called Alpha Strike. That's the technical Magic the Gathering term for attacking with all the creatures you've got. It's Alpha Strike. For the Legion! This is victory! And it doesn't matter who he blocks because he's going to take 3 damage either way. He dies, blah. There's a bit of overkill, but some people prefer to do precise, exact damage. There are reasons for that because there are cards. I don't think there are any in Standard right now, but there are cards that exist that actually will save your life if you get overkilled. If you take negative damage, you can turn that back into life and save yourself for another turn. And you'll probably die the next turn if they're overkilling you that much. So that's basically that's the gist of the game. A quick re-go over of the phases. You start off the game with you start off with an upkeep phase. Now let's say he didn't die. Let's say this guy chose to have mercy. His next turn, this would be upkeep. So he would untap everything. Now this is before you even draw. You have to do upkeep. And a lot of people are very anal about doing these steps in order. I'm not, and most casual players aren't. But there are people who are like, hey, you didn't do your upkeep before you drew, so now you don't get to do your upkeep, so you don't get to untap anything. And there are people who will be jerks like that. I'm not one of them. And then your draw step. Now you have to do your draw step because it's very important because the same reasons. If you start playing before you draw, they're going to assume that you just want to skip your draw step, and they won't tell you. A lot of people won't. I personally will. I'll be like, hey, aren't you going to draw? If I catch it. I might not catch it, though, because I'm focused on my hand. I'm focused on what I'm doing. And you're focused on what you're doing. But I don't play these colors usually, so there is that. So I'll get into how to build a deck like these in a different video. This is just kind of a basic go-over. If there's something that you feel I need to go over in greater detail, comment. Or you can shoot me an email. I'll put my email address in the link, or not in the link, but in the description box, along with some links to some websites that you should definitely check out if you're just starting out. And actually, even if you're not starting out, if you don't know about these websites, then you probably are just starting out. But here, I'll give you some awesome websites to go to, some great resources for new players. I hope you enjoyed my video. If you did, subscribe. Or at least like the video. I can handle you not subscribing, but I would prefer you did so that I can get more exposure. Apologies for any lack of quality. I'm using my iPad. I'm trying my best here. So without further ado, this has been Nick Dorn from Magic the Gathering Lab. Peace out.